I come bearing some news, but this news has came from one source, and we do know that this source is close to the club, so we have to wait and see should the situation arise. But according to Talksport, and let's remember the source outlet here, Talksport. What do we know about Talksport? Good old friend Jim. Oh God, that's so bright. Let's turn that down. That brightness. Jim, who's a good friend of David Sullivan, obviously has a route into David Sullivan, but Talksport themselves, the radio broadcaster, has reported via their website today that West Ham have decided to part ways with the Spaniard. Now, please, I am not saying this is 100% confirmed. What I am saying is, I'm bringing you the news that Talksport have announced that. That's why in the title, according to Talksport. Today, obviously, you've seen Russ's shows that we're talking a lot about West Ham looking at other options to bring in. It could be Graham Potter on a short-term deal. And it looks like the end is nigh. The end is near for Julen Lopetegui at West Ham. It looks like Graham Potter is expected to be the new boss. Earlier on today, you were expecting him to be kicking around the club for another 3 games, given the chance to play or do another 3 games at the club, but it looks like West Ham are going to jump ship sooner rather than later to bring in Graham Potter to the club, because things obviously have taken a turn for the worse, especially behind the scenes when you're hearing the stories of Julen Lopetegui and Tim Steidten potentially having words and not agreeing, and again Tim Steidten having to step back from situations. But let me please make you understand what I am saying here. This is not sources that I have. This is not sources that any of our normal people have. This is coming out that that Talksport have announced, have gone ahead, have potentially jumped the gun, but they do have sources close to the club that's saying that Julen Lopetegui has been sacked as West Ham manager. We will have to refrain from finding out and wait for other information as soon as that does come in. But it looks like his future is definitely hanging in the balance. So what do you reckon from that? And if Julen Lopetegui goes, this is the never-ending story when it comes to West Ham. Are you happy about potentially Graham Potter coming into the club? Let me jump into the conversation in the chat and see what everyone else is saying. Gravy Davy says goodbye Loppy. God, right, let me bring in Holly for you. Let me see if I can, it's been a little while, so let me see if I can do this transition nicely. Russ will be happy with this one. Holly, how are you doing? You okay?
I'm really good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Well, listen, before we get your opinion, let me just quickly bring this to your attention if you're just joining us, because there's a lot of yous in the chat here. This week's Football Prize's prize is a chance to win 2 hospitality tickets to West Ham versus Fulham on Tuesday the 14th of January, 7:30pm, kick-off at the London Stadium. There is only 65 tickets available, so the ticket cost for this is £9.95. Hospitality at the London Stadium against Fulham, which could be Graham Potter's first game. Who knows? There is also further prizes to win, instant prizes, so 2 hospitality tickets to West Ham versus Fulham, and also a full Krug signed top. Low odds on this game, so make sure you do enter by clicking the link in the description as well. Holly, I've put the disclaimer out. I've said it's come from Talksport. We do know that Talksport have some ins to the club. They are currently the only people that are reporting the news of Julen Lopetegui being sacked by West Ham. However, over the last couple of hours, we're starting to see that snowball effect about West Ham starting to speak to Graham Potter, short-term deal agreed, Tim Steidten stepping away from Julen Lopetegui, all that sort of stuff. Over to you, Holly. What's your thoughts?
It felt like it's been a long time coming. Like you said, I'm not gonna completely commit until we know that it has happened, because we know that we've gone back and forth a little bit with as fans. I think pretty much everyone has agreed that the time is done with Lopetegui. I don't know what the conversations have been with the likes of Graham Potter, whether that's been what's caused a bit of a delay when there's no faith anymore in Lopetegui. But it just feels mad to stick by a manager if you're giving them a game-by-game basis of whether they'll be there the next week. Because I think you either believe in someone to take West Ham to the next level or to the next game, or you don't think they're capable of it. And in my eyes, at that point, you need to be doing everything you can to find someone else to step in and do better.
100%.
So I think if Lopetegui is to go, I think it will give more time for a new manager. And I'm hoping that it might be something that we don't dilly-dally on too much longer. But like you said as well, Talksport are obviously saying that it is done or it's happening. Jacob Steinberg saying nothing official's happened yet. Daily Mail have been saying that we're in talks with Potter, and we have been a lot in the last 24 hours. So it feels like if it's not already happened, or at least if it's not already being reported and released that this has happened, it feels like we're right on the edge at this point, and that it feels like a bit of a tipping point. There are so many stories. I'd be very surprised if at this point it goes back.
Yeah, so let me just kind of give you a bit of a catch-up if you're just joining us. Talksport tweeted and put on their website, Julian Lopetegui, I'll actually read you the exact tweet, because I was wondering if they've changed it and they haven't. Breaking, Julian Lopetegui sacked as West Ham lineup interim boss. And now it looks like, where are we? Alex Crook, also of Talksport, is speaking out now, is saying that Julian Lopetegui is set to be sacked by West Ham as well. So it's interesting because there's so many different... well, listen, usual suspect. I have said there, Lopetegui sacked from West Ham, ? According to Talksport. It would defeat the purpose if we didn't talk about it, if the news comes out. But what I think has happened here is, you could correct me if I'm wrong, Holly, and what you've said is so true. If you're working on a game-to-game basis at this stage, then it doesn't make sense. And I think the frustration from the fans, we would be more frustrated if we were getting rid of Julian Lopetegui if we had some form of identity under him, if we actually understood what Julian Lopetegui was doing. But 19 games in, I can put my hand on heart and say I have not a single clue what the man is doing at the club. I don't see the vision. I don't even see an element of identity about West Ham. I don't see a footballing team. I'm quite bored and feel disconnected to what's actually going on the field, and I'm now turning up against, sides and really concerned that we're going to concede, and I'm now starting to predict things that are happening, as you are, as every West Ham fan is, about why are you playing Mavropanos? Todibo will come off the bench at half-time. He'll stick with all the usual stuff. And he won't play Somerville sometimes. It's just too many things that add up, doesn't it? That doesn't help the situation.
Yeah, and I think exactly what you said there, that disconnect is something that I'm also feeling. And even just, I guess, on social media, you can see a real shift. I think we've been frustrated as fans a lot under people like Moyes, where there's a lot of anger and a lot of annoyance at things not going how we would want them to. But I think for the first time, I'm sort of just seeing people switch off from it and go, you know what, I'm just going to leave it.
Yeah, well, there's an image that I'm going to post up right now that I have just seen. And I don't think AI is doing its business, but this looks like it's a legit image here for you. Tim Steidten and Graham Potter.
Oh, it's hard to tell, isn't it? Because normally they've got like 7 fingers if it's AI. It looks like he's got a normal number of fingers.
It looks reasonably legit. And that picture is now going viral all over the internet. Holly, I have so many grave concerns about the club that we love. I've had them for many a year since we moved to the new stadium. How we conduct our business, how the messaging gets put out there. I want things to change. I want things to get better. I'm not necessarily 100% against Graham Potter coming into the club, but as things stand, I just think the way we conduct our business is generally awful. It's awful that we conduct our business. And I'm not, listen, West Ham's my first love. Well, I better not say that in front of the wife or the kids. You know what I mean? It's like, we love them. It's our first love as such. Yeah. But I just don't understand how we can deal with the way we deal with it. Lopetegui's not out of his job yet. There's pictures going viral of Graham Potter and Tim Steidten speaking. We think Tim Steiden's stepping away. He's been told to step back, but suddenly he's now in conversations with him in a hotel somewhere, all that sort of stuff. Holly, I don't know. Let me know your kind of thoughts as well.
it feels so messy, doesn't it? And I've been saying for quite a while now, I don't see how, with so much confusion, so many people stepping on each other's toes, so many rumours of whether Lopetegui's going to last another 5 hours or not, all of this just creates so much uncertainty and so much mess that I don't see how any of the people in that picture can actually perform even to the best of their own abilities. Whether it's Steiten not actually having control over who's coming in and who isn't, whether it's people butting heads and the Steiten not getting a say that he wants and Lopetegui not getting a say that he wants, is literally like too many cooks, where I feel like you've got to choose a direction, you've got to back someone, and you've at least got to try that. Because if you keep going, oh, well, we'll give you 30% of how you want to approach the games, and then you can have 20% of how we approach the games, you just end up with this big mess. And I think that's what we're seeing at the moment, where nobody's really got the full say. Nobody's able to really play to their strengths. And that's now rubbing off on the pitch, where players aren't performing that we know have been able to in the past. And it just feels like a big mess, but also a massive thing for somebody to fix. Because if you're going to bring in a new manager, you've got to still give them the reins over, well, head coach, over their part of this pizza. Like we're just like chopping off random bits of pizza and going, oh, hopefully that makes a full pizza. And basically, it's just.
I've had to put this banner up because loads of people in the comments are saying there's still nothing anywhere else, and I understand that. Definitely, Talksport have jumped the gun here, whether there's an element of truth. Remember, they do have a direct line. They do have a source directly connected through David Sullivan. When it comes to Lopetegui, listen, I don't doubt for a second. I'm not one to jump the gun very quickly in terms of sacking the manager. But Holly, I'm seeing things that have frustrated me possibly even more now than what it did under Pellegrini. I thought there's so many similarities of how West Ham are playing and the lack of style of play that what we had when we had Pellegrini. But more things frustrate me now because my expectations have risen, and I'm happily admit that my expectations have been risen, especially because of the quality, the larger amount of quality of players we've got in our squad. That we can't seem to get the best out of. And I'll be honest with you, I'm looking at Kudus, who looks like he's pissed off. I'm looking at Paquetá, who looks like he's pissed off. I'm looking at Todibo, who looks like he's pissed off. Areola pissed off. And the team morale must be awful. And for the club to come out and suddenly say, well, no, it's not. It's very, very hard to believe that team morale's not really low.
That'd be interesting if Daz has said that Sky Sports News are now saying the same. Yeah, so I wonder whether it is something that is about to be picked up and Talksport have just jumped the gun and beaten everyone to it.
Yeah.
Be an interesting one. But no, I agree. I just think there's a lot of mess at the moment. And even just the discussion today about Steiten and how much of a role he's going to have and how much of an influence and whether his power is going to be reduced in the coming sort of like days or weeks or months. Things like that are just confusing because obviously there's all this talk about whether or not he'll even be here in another season's time. And yet the technical director is the one that should be overseeing any changes. It's a long-term vision. It's not someone that you can pick up and drop again. So I think it's going to be a really interesting one to see what happens because it feels like a bit of a turning point where we're either going to absolutely implode right now, or maybe we could bring in, the reason I'm not against Potter coming in is because I feel like he could come in, whether it was on an interim basis or whatever, and just bring a tiny bit of stability because where there's so much mess on the pitch and we're really struggling to pick up any points, any results, any consistency, any style of play, all these things that we've been saying that we can't quite work out what Lopetegui is trying to do. I think if we can get somebody in that can at least have a single style of play or a single way that they're trying to approach things, then we'd have that tiny bit of consistency there. And I think from there you can build, you can make changes. But at the moment, it just feels like everything needs to change. I don't know if that's the same way you're feeling, Anton.
100%. Like it feels like that. I mean, listen, I don't think I'll ever be really happy until the ownership of West Ham go. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not really. I don't want to be their friends. I have no interest in being their friends. And for me, it's the ownership, and I don't think I'll ever really be fully happy until they go. However, to make a better situation from what we've got, Lopetegui has to go, and I'm not dead against Graham Potter. Yes, he's not managed for a while, but he has an element. You know, I know Brighton have a structure that West Ham fans look up to and go, right, from top to bottom, their club is ran well, and they've got a very good system in place that any manager really from anywhere, any coach from anywhere can step in and be reasonably successful. But I think that also takes away from the thought that what sometimes I hear people saying is any coach could go to Brighton and do well, and I don't agree with that comment. I don't think any coach could go in there and do well. I just think their system works well, and they've obviously got really good recruitment. But they obviously allow, is it David Weir, who's their technical director, to go and do his job and source the relevant people and relevant team around him. Ours gets messy. Ours is messy because we have Sullivan, who we categorically know still gets involved, and he can't help himself, and that frustrates me. It frustrates you. It frustrates all West Ham fans. But I think Graham Potter has got something about him. I don't think he'll take any crap. I think the job at Chelsea was always going to be a tough job. Chelsea have got a long history of just bringing people in and sacking people, and I'm not saying he did great. I don't think he did. Obviously, we know he didn't, but we need a mixture of someone who can steady the ship, but get the best out of the players, because we have good players and a good team and a good squad, and I think Graham Potter will come into this team and go, right, we've got Kudus, right? We've a world beater, like big clubs around the world are sniffing around Kudus, thinking, great, carry on like that, because what we'll do is we'll buy you for a lower fee and bring you the best, get the best out of this player. I think what Potter could do with Kudus is get the best out of a Kudus and get the best out of a Paquetá situation, or even just change the dynamics of this team and do the press differently, and maybe see that we're conceding shitloads of goals and change it as well. That's.
And also, I think when things are going so drastically wrong to the point where the players now look disillusioned and fans are left wondering what it is that we're actually even trying to do in games, or who the starting 11 is, or why we're not playing certain players like Somerville as much as we could, or all these different things where everyone's just confused. It feels like for everybody to get back behind the manager and almost be a united front, or a head coach, I keep saying the word manager, you almost need a fresh start. It's like if you had a boss that was just terrible at their job, messy, everyone looked at them and went, they don't know what they're doing. It would be so hard for that manager to win everyone back over, and not only win them over, but everyone feel motivated by them. And I feel like at that moment in time, that's where you can get a new person coming in. And ironically, what we didn't get with Lopetegui, obviously the new manager bounce, because everyone's got that little rush of enthusiasm, that belief that maybe this could be different. Maybe this is where I'm actually going to perform really well. And it just kind of resets things a little bit. So I also feel like that's a massive benefit. Whoever we do bring in, that there's a chance we could benefit from that.
So let me just explain to you. Talksport have just released a new statement on their website, which is 4 minutes old, and they have backed it up. West Ham have decided to part company with manager Julian Lopetegui. They say, let me just jump to the part here. It's understood that ex-Chelsea boss Graham Potter is in talks to replace Lopetegui, and is expected to be named as his replacement. The length of his contract remains to be seen, but it's understood that he's happy to join until the end of the season. And it's also understood that sporting director Tim Steidten now faces an uncertain future at the club. This is what they've come in with at the part. In their statement here, it says, speaking, I mean, listen, they've gone to Tony Cottee as someone who is obviously a legend of the club, but we all know what Tony Cottee's like. Sometimes he gets a microphone and he goes wild, and he's been really damning towards Tim Steidten, and particular the board. He said it's not just on Julian Lopetegui, which I do agree with. It's not solely on him. I think it's harsh to blame a lot of this on Tim Steidten when he has got bringing in players, and we as fans are looking at these players going, first and foremost, why are they not playing? And secondly, if they are playing, why are they playing out of position? So I don't think if Tim Steidten's coming in to not do an on-the-field job, then how can you blame Tim Steidten for his recruits? Because people are turning around and going, we spent £30 million on Lewis Guilherme and we're not seeing anything from him. But many clubs around the Premier League do that. Many clubs do that.
I completely agree. And I think as well, at the end, like taking all emotions, all results out of it that happened after this point, at the end of that transfer window, I was happy with what we'd done. I was excited by the players we brought in. I felt a lot of hope that we were going to do really good things with these players. And we did know from the beginning that Guilherme was a player that was more of a long-term project. So yeah, when you look at the fact that we're not doing well and we spent 30 million on a player that we don't really play, that is one thing, but this is also how I think you look at more of a long-term strategy, and you can benefit if you do it right. But
Yeah.
I was happy with that transfer window. Like, at the end of the day, we're not bringing in the world's most expensive players because we don't have the budget for that. But I felt like we'd had a good window. And then what's happened since has obviously made us look back at that window and go, oh, but this player's not doing well, and they're not doing well, and this isn't going well, and they're not getting game time. And I think this is where suddenly you look at that with a very different view, saying, oh, maybe the summer transfer window wasn't that good. But is that on Stuyton bringing in the players that then aren't utilised correctly? Because we're looking at a lot of players like Paqueta and Kudus, who we know have the potential to play so well, but we're looking at them now and they're giving the ball away and they look like they've just lost the talent that they had. Is that on Stuyton, or had he done his job by the point at which he came into he brought those players in? So
yeah. And please, again, I know there's a lot of people in the chat. I just want to reiterate that according to Talksport, they've jumped the gun early. Listen, they have jumped the gun early. Some other reports are starting to pick up on it a little bit. Nothing from the kind of reputable ones. Whether you call Talksport reputable or not is up to you. That's your choice. But the report is that West Ham have sacked Julian Lopetegui. That is according to Talksport. That is not based upon our sources. We're keeping a strong eye out on more of the official lines. I think X has come out and said it's not 100% done yet, but loads of people here I'm just so intrigued to watch all the tweets. It's a big move. It's a big media move by Talksport to say it. I feel like if they God, they're going to town. Talksport are going to town. They've got images of Graham Potter in West Ham gear that aren't real but made up already. Like, they're going to town on the fact that he is going to come in. And
if they're wrong, this is bad.
This is bad for them, and they're already, and it's already bad for them as well. Jamie says, sounds like fake news and reports on Sky Sports. Dean Ashton incoming. Look at how Wolves have been revived under Pereira. The factory reset is needed. I completely agree with that comment. I think the factory reset is absolutely needed. And I feel like if we really look back at when Lopetegui was brought in, that we probably all agreed that it was never our first choice, but we're going to give him some game time. And then it got to that point, Holly, where we were like 5 games in, right, okay, right, as long as in the next couple of games we see something, and then 5 more games and we're like, right, okay, maybe one more game away if we see something. And then I saw something in the Newcastle game, but we've played 19 Premier League games, and that's the only game I've actually sincerely thought we played well. And apart from that, I'm like, what? Yeah.
We've almost had like little carrots just dangled though, where I think, same as what you were saying, I think originally I said 8 games. You need about 8 games to judge what a manager or a head coach can actually do at a club. But then we got to that 8-game mark and certain things were starting to look better. Some of the stats were looking more favourable. We were having a bit more possession. And you either looked at it as we're not hitting the ground running here, or things just aren't quite falling for us yet. We just need to be a bit more patient. But then that point comes where you say, we can't be any more patient. And I think for me, the biggest part has been that I genuinely cannot see what it is that Lopetegui wants to do on that pitch. And that frightens me a lot, because we've had it with like Moyes, where although we might not have agreed with how he played, you knew what he'd do, you knew how he'd approach a game. And I didn't realise, but that probably gave me a lot more confidence in him, even when I thought I'd lost confidence, because you knew that we'd at least approach a game quite defensively or something like that. But when you literally don't have a clue of how you're going into a game, who you'll play, what you're going to do during that 90 minutes, it's frightening as a fan, isn't it?
100%.
I'm scared, Anton.
100%. A couple of more other media outlets are picking up on it, but they're not necessarily saying it's from their information. It's actually taking the information from Talksport. So again, just trying to be as transparent with you guys as we possibly can. David, what's his name? Sean Wheatston's come out saying people have jumped the gun. But with this news, I can't help but feel like this is going to grow arms and legs, and I can't help but feel that this is going to be the snowball effect, and I can't help but feel that this is actually going to happen. But I would be shocked now if this doesn't happen. it just could be a battle between the ITKs to go when it actually happened to say who gets the breaking news. You know, maybe they have, but I just think like a big main, it's an interesting one, isn't it? It's wild. There was a question back there. Where's that one gone?
It was, if he's sacked, do you think we spend less in January?
I don't necessarily think we need to spend big in January, Holly. I think we just need to get a couple of recruits in. I don't think we're going to go out there and go and get a world beater striker. I think we just need to bring in some really, like, you would hope that if the Tim Stein situation isn't as bad as what some people are reporting, then you would hope, in my opinion, that we've done our due diligence on loan players, on players from the Championship, etc., and maybe we could try and get an impact. But the key here, for me, the key is the change of coach. It has to be the key because there is players there. Like, I know without Bowen, and we obviously received a little bit of good news seeing Bowen running. I think it was on one of those air treadmills, the ones that take away the so it's like lighter on the treadmill. So he's obviously they're obviously reasonably confident that he's recovering well, and I think we've known from the history of his injuries he does recover quite well, which is really good. But when you don't have Bowen and you don't have Antonio, but you look at that attacking outlet we had against Manchester City, because we played okay, like we weren't shit against Manchester City. It wasn't that bad. So but getting the best out of the players that we've got, and putting a rocket up Alvarez's arse and going, get back to what the reason why we signed you, play the way we know. Because, Holly, I don't think, and you can tell me what you think on this, but I think one of the biggest issues we've got is the inconsistency in team selection. A player doesn't know whether they're coming or going.
Yeah, and you've got to have time alongside other players for you all to have that inbuilt sense of where the ball's going to be played, when you need to run in behind a player. If you're not giving a pretty similar starting 11 time again and again, it's just all over the place and it's chopping and changing. Like, they don't know what they're doing because they don't know where the other players are going to move to. And there's no consistency to even try and build on or improve on. And we've seen a lot of the players that are struggling at the moment that fans are getting frustrated with, Paqueta and Kudus. There have been times where we have looked at them and gone, these are incredible players. Thank goodness we've got them at West Ham. And I think that says a lot, that it isn't necessarily an overhaul in terms of selling all of these players and bringing in replacements, because that comes with risks as well. But why are we not actually currently getting the best out of those players? Because if you can get Paqueta and Kudus firing on all four cylinders again, that's amazing. That's just as good as two incredible signings. And I think this is what we need to do, as well as trying to invest where it's necessary. But we know that we're going to have to obviously sell players to get funds for January transfers. I think we also need to focus on who we can actually get a lot more out of, that for whatever reason right now they're underperforming. Because, I think that's massive in terms of not just saying, well, that player's done for them, we're just going to get rid of them, lose 30, 40 million on them or whatever and start afresh with somebody else.
So just for another bit of reference, Sean Wheatston, who we also know is sources close to the club, has said Talksport appears to have jumped the gun a bit by saying Julian Lopetegui has been sacked. They have since amended it to say West Ham have made a decision to sack their head coach. Either way, it appears to be only a matter of time until a statement comes to confirm that, which might not necessarily be today. But I reckon I wouldn't be surprised. I think this is the impression I'm getting is this is happening. And we are about to hold on, I'm just reading on something here.
It does feel as though something's going to happen, doesn't it? Because there's so much talk, and for Talksport to not be backing down in any way whatsoever, they must know it's imminent. Otherwise, that's
no. I mean, they're so far from backing down. They're actually pushing forward with made up graphic designer images of Graham Potter in his West Ham gear or whatever. This is Russ's interpretation of Graham Potter in his West Ham gear as well. But I in due course expect this image to appear very, very soon. If you're just joining us, this is another image going around on social media of Tim Steidden speaking to Graham Potter. And it's potentially, let me rephrase everything I have said. According to Talksport, Someone has Talksport as a West. Do you really think Potter will be an improvement? According to Talksport, they have confirmed that Lopetegui has been sacked. No other mainstream media outlet has come forward and said that their sources have said it. That's also including Jacob Steinberg, who we know has got a direct line to David Sullivan himself, but we'll have to see here. Ross says, regarding Potter, Eddie Howe's stock was low following some time out of the game. He won't have stood still. Excited about his appointment if it's true. And I think some people will also will agree with that as well. Reuters have said apparently that he's gone. I think the Sun are reporting it, but I don't like the Sun, so let's not talk about them.
AJ as well saying, what prompted the sudden
sorry.
change? If we knew that he was going to be given games, was what was being said. I just wonder whether we've been in conversations with the likes of Potter the whole time, waiting for, I don't know, to be honest, what it was that we would have been waiting for. Yes, a moment where you just go, oh, now's the time.
I think if West Ham do decide to bite the bullet tonight or tomorrow, then I don't understand. Was Potter ready 2-3 weeks ago when we heard he was? Were we in conversations with him 2 or 3 weeks ago when we heard he was? What was the real situation? This is one of those things that you don't really know, because earlier today reports were coming out saying he was going to be given 3 more games minimum, which led us to have the opinion that he would just be here till the end of the season. But I'm not giving any element of credit once a decision is made to Sullivan or the owners of this club, because they're and I think sorry Kim Joe, I agree with you. I don't like it to say it, but I think the Leicester game was the final nail in the coffin for me, to be honest, because I just didn't know how he survived. I do not know how he survived that on the back of such a bad loss the week before, to then come up to Leicester, who actually played some of the worst football I've seen in the Premier League and beat us 3-1. I know we had shitloads of chances, but it was not good enough. Some of my mates, Chelsea fans, are taking the piss.
The one thing I would say about the Chelsea situation is that I feel like it was a bit of a poison chalice. I watched an interview actually of Potter speaking about it, and he said that obviously he'd been brought in, which I'm sure many managers that have come to West Ham could probably say the same thing, with a certain vision of how things were going to play out and the responsibilities that they'd have. And he just kept getting more and more and more players thrown at you. I think as fans, we think, oh, like that's amazing. You've got so many players to pick from. But what he was saying was that it almost made it impossible, because they were just throwing players at him, none of which necessarily fitted what he was trying to do. But at the same time, everyone had this expectation, because of how much they'd spent and the names that they were bringing in, that it would be easy for him. But what was happening was every transfer window, when he was getting these players given to him, he essentially had to start afresh with an entirely new team. And as we know at West Ham as well, that's not always an easy task, because in theory, it should be simple. You get good players and you play well, but there's so much more that actually makes a team click, makes them play well, makes them fit a certain system, and then means that they can beat oppositions playing a certain way. And I don't necessarily want to judge him too much on the Chelsea job, because I don't know how many managers would have been successful there. Obviously, it is something you've got to be aware of. But at Chelsea, at Brighton, I was impressed with what he did, and I'd like to think that he could do a similar-ish job. And either way, I feel like he could just bring a bit of stability at this moment in time. And do I think that would be an upgrade on Lopetegui? I do at the moment. But how do you feel about Potter? And would he be your first choice that is being reported at the moment?
I'm probably exactly the same way you feel. Like, I'm judging him more on the Brighton time than I did at the Chelsea time. Apparently, according to some... Sorry, I'm just reading some stuff as we're updating, but I mean, X is saying that, I don't know if this has definitely come direct from X. This is called someone else who's picked up some information saying that Steiden could walk. To be honest with you, the only thing that gave me any form of comfort about the situation at West Ham was that Steiden stayed. And if things were as bad as what we thought they were even a year ago, then I think Steiden would have gone. But Steiden's sticking about, and if there is truth in Graham Potter, and there is truth that picture was taken more recently, then I don't see why Steiden would walk, because that picture is that picture there. If there's truth in that picture that's been taken recently or in the last couple of weeks, then if you don't have faith in Steiden, then why is Steiden talking to Graham Potter? That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, this is the thing. I think whether certain things are being reported and they're not correct, or whether, because we're hearing rumours obviously that Steiten's been away from the training ground. I don't quite understand the reasoning behind that, whether it's because Lopetegui's been like, if you're going to potentially sack me, just let me get on with what I'm doing. Like, don't get in my way. If my head's on the chopping block, just let me do what I need to do. Or whether it's a decision to actually give him less power and push Steiten away somewhat. I just don't understand. Like, I genuinely do not understand, because it just feels like nothing is organized from the top in terms of what we're actually trying to do. We're almost like telling everyone what they want to hear, like little bits of it. Because if we're saying that Steiten's going to have less power and don't let him near the training ground so Lopetegui can do his job, meanwhile Steiten is off talking to Graham Potter, it's just all over the place, isn't it?
Yeah. In terms of your question, though, and we've put the question out to everyone in the chat as well, like, what's your thoughts on Potter? People have asked me this question: who is my first choice? And I don't actually have an answer, to be honest with you, because I think I'm so kind of disconnected from what the ownership at West Ham do. I was questioned last year on should West Ham bring in Unai Emery, and I actually physically said no, and my answer was no on the basis that we have the owners we've got, and I don't think that's a match made in heaven. I think the reason why there's a match made in heaven with Emery and Aston Villa is that they genuinely back off, let him do what he needs to do, don't do that interfering element. And I think that no manager like Emery would accept that. And I think the problem with Lopetegui appointment at West Ham was that he basically had this kind of love affair for the club and wanted to come to the club. So, and someone wrote up in the comments, there's so many comments I can't even find it. And you're right there, Aston Villa have a structure as well, sorry. But I think Lopetegui, someone wrote in the comments that Lopetegui's probably got a clause in his contract for January. Now, we don't 100% know the finer details. We're led to believe that he was on a 2-year contract, subject to that being goals met, specific goals that were met, that would lead to him potentially getting an opportunity. However, who's to say that there isn't a clause in the contract to say that, listen, if you do this shit, then you're heading out the door as well, and that could be a genuine, real thing. So Potter's not necessarily my first choice, but then again, I don't know who is my first choice, because under the current ownership, I'm concerned. But if it's going to be Graham Potter, am I against it? No. Am I for it? Absolutely. It needs a change of guard. I need someone to come in and get the best out of this team. Look at the players we've got and think, shit, you've got some real talent, and you're just not doing anything. And I love this comment. CFAX hasn't put anything up about it either.
CFAX haven't reported it. It's not happening.
Yep. Our first choice. Sorry, go for it.
Sorry, the thing about Potter that I think would be most useful to us at this moment in time, I'm not saying he is a well-beaten manager that's going to completely make West Ham a Champions League side, but I think he would bring the discipline and the calmness on the pitch that we currently need to be able to just fix things a bit and be able to find our feet somewhat, or even have a chance of finding our feet, whether he's an interim manager or he does well and stays for a while, because he's able to play out from the back. He's able to do quite a bit of build-up play. One of the areas he did struggle with a little more at Brighton was actually converting the chances. But again, we've known that we need a striker, and this is a position that we're going to have to focus on. But we saw against City that we can create chances. We have players that have the ability. That bit in the middle where Somerville played the ball out and Kudus was on the wing, I feel like we have the ability to do these things, but we just need to reinvent ourselves a little bit right now, because everyone's just looking down and we're all depressed and sad about it. And that can't get the players feeling up for the game either. Everyone's just sort of lost our direction a bit, haven't we? So if we could just have that bit of discipline, if Potter could come in and calm things down, I feel like we'd have the best chance right now of just recovering a bit.
This comment could be genuinely a reason why we've had to move, if this is any truth in it, because obviously we're hearing today that Everton are assessing the Dyche situation, and perhaps they did earmark Potter, so we had to act first, and we had to potentially get rid of Lopetegui. Like I said, I'm using the words potentially and according to, because we don't know for a fact this has happened, but we're led to believe this is probably inevitable sooner rather than later. So oh, sorry, I just jumped someone's.
That's right. I just took the one back you had. Oh no, panic.
So I mean, what's the called? Who's this paper? Mail Online. The Mail Online are reporting, and I don't know how they would know this with their timestamp gallery, but that the Tim Steidten and Graham Potter met today. I don't know how they would know that, but that's what they're now saying. The Mail Online. So maybe the reason why the announcement hasn't come out yet is because Graham Potter hasn't 100% agreed to the deal. Maybe that could be the reason.
Never know. Maybe he's still sat there chatting with Tim.
Yeah, or maybe he's getting his images done and yeah. So anyway, listen, that brings an end to our little cheeky show for you. Like I said, if you are just joining us or you are listening to us, we have been telling you that Talksport have broke some news today. They've gone to town on it that Graham Potter, that Julian Lopetegui has been sacked from West Ham as West Ham line up Graham Potter to come in charge of them. This is not official from West Ham. When it does become official, of course, especially on the West Ham website, we will come to you with the news. So bear with us. Holly, I'm going to give you the last word.
For now, speculation, a lot of speculation. I feel like there's no smoke without a fire, but we'll see what happens in the coming days, because I can't believe there's this much talk about something that isn't happening. And I know that things have been taken, by the sounds of things, on a game-by-game basis, but surely there are no more things that can change. If minds are made up now and it's getting to the point where reports like this are coming out, I will be surprised if we don't see something in the coming days. And I hope that we do, because it feels like something needs to happen now so we can save our season.
The reset is coming. Thank you very much for watching. If you're new around here, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, leave a comment. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, please do that as well. Subscribe to us on all the socials. We're everywhere and anywhere. And stay tuned. We'll give you all the official news as soon as we hear it. Take it easy and come on, you Irons.
Come on, you Irons.